Good morning, Africa. Good morning, Nigeria. Good morning, Akwa Ibom State. Beautiful Tuesday morning it is here from Uyo, the capital city of Akwa Ibom State, Nigeria. And this is Rise and Shine coming to you on the staples of Spectrum Television. My name is Uyaya Nek, and good morning and thanks for joining us.
And I am Francis Oyimaidet. Glad to have you joined us. It's Tuesday, of course, excitedly the last day for the month of October. By tomorrow, we'll be ushering in the 11th month. I remember back then in school, 11 used to be like the hottest month in school. Like literally everybody wanted to do something. Everybody wanted to get punished or punish the junior ones. And the junior ones were doing everything possible to get away from the senior students. But it's also the month that people try to get ahead of themselves, trying to rush to cover up for the Ember month. People literally try to, cover up things they could not achieve from January up until October, which is why during periods like this, you always hear the Federal Road Safety issuing directive advisories to Nigerians to be very cautious while applying the road. And this morning, while talking Nigeria, I'd like to add voices to the voice of caution. What you could not achieve from January up until today being the end of October, you just will not be able to achieve it in just 1 month. So relax and know that there are lots of other opportunities and many more days ahead of you. But this is Rise and Shine, and we'll be talking Nigeria.
A couple of things that we have lined up. Of course, it won't be news anymore to know that there was a real big squabble in Rivers State yesterday as the State House of Assembly moved to impeach the governor, Fubara, yesterday. Of course, about 32 members out of all those sitting in the State House of Assembly actually did give a nod for the state governor to be impeached, first of its kind in just a few days, few months into office. Of course, we're also seeing that Nigeria, Germany have signed a $700 billion solid minerals exploration pact. Of course, we are seeing a lot of moves here to try and stabilize the economy. Of course, Atiku Abubakar, the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, isn't lying low, as he has expressed his dissatisfaction with the verdicts of the Supreme Court. Of course, acknowledging that it's final, but nonetheless, we must say what it is. According to Atiku Abubakar, this was not well done. We also see that INEC has published the number of collected PVCs. These are some of the conversations that we will be looking into this morning, and a myriad of other cases. Of course, we know that the FEC has approved 2.17 trillion naira as 2023 supplementary budget. We are not saying the budget for 2024. 2.17 trillion naira is supplementary budget for 2023. These are more some of the conversations that we're going to have this morning. Take advantage of our social media platforms and our phone lines that will be displayed on your screen. Feel free to call in, send us WhatsApp messages, send us your contributions, and we'll be glad to hear from Nigerians this morning.
Well, of course, we'll be glad to hear from you this morning, and we'll also encourage you to join our conversations across our social media platform, all of which you can find on our website, spectrumtvlive.ng. Of course, all of the avenues made available will allow you to also share your thoughts on the different stories that we will be talking about this morning. But starting with our very first flash news this morning, we see yesterday that Rivers State Governor Fubara had spoken about the pandemonium that rose from the State House of Assembly. Of course, you're talking about bombing and the fear and the drama that unfolded as a result of what was, as of yesterday, said to be a planned impeachment move by the House of Assembly members. Of course, we saw Fubara addressing Nigerians and, of course, reiterating the fact that he is a peaceful man, and that even if there was a move by the State House of Assembly to impeach him, being a peaceful man, he would have no reason to go against the legislators. Of course, within the course of that, as a reaction to that, we saw the Nigerian police force in Port Harcourt also making a move and promising to investigate the circumstances that led to the bomb blast in the assembly complex. Of course, an interesting twist this morning is what we're seeing, that officially the Rivers State Governor has been given an impeachment notice, and we'd just like to take the fact that it's the first of its kind, and it's coming quite really early in the leadership of this present administration. Of course, The embattled governor yesterday who spoke out promised to speak on the crisis before the end of this week, but unfortunately the interesting tweet is one that we cannot explain. I'm hoping that within the course of the day, Governor Fubara will be able to speak to Nigerians and address the different concerns. But of course, according to information as of yesterday, some anti-Fubara lawmakers hurriedly removed the House Majority Leader Edison Ehie, who is perceived to be a major supporter of the governor. Of course, shortly after that, after his pronouncement that he was removed, and then a new speaker was taken over, took over in an anti-coup by other supporters who are not for Fubara, we saw the pandemonium that spread out. Total, there are 32 members of the House of Assembly. 24 are the anti-Fubara members moving for governor's impeachment. 8 are for the governors. This is a serious crisis that is currently happening right now.
Yes, of course, the situation yesterday was one that literally took, Nigerians by surprise. First of all, it was, gunshots at the State House and, different, kinds of sounds where people, were scampering for their safety. Yesterday, listening to Governor Fubara of River State, he said he was personally shot at yesterday, in the process of all of these that is happening. Of course, it seems to be a crisis where some people are saying that it's an issue of, the former governor, Nyesom Wike's loyalists versus, similarly, Fubara's loyalists in River State. Majorly, this is what most people are perceiving to be the cause of this crisis that is brewing in River State. In the wake of political changes, this is the first of its kind really early on in the political career of, anyone at this time for an impeachment notice to be served, actually, because the State House of Assembly did sit in River State, and 24 members of the River State House of Assembly moved to impeach the governor. Of course, it resulted in the turbulence that we have seen and heard springing out of River State as of now. Now, of course, different issues have happened, and I think the primary issue here was that Fubara has stated clearly in his first reaction to the situation in the States that he doesn't have any problem if anyone is going to be moving to impeach him. Let it just be done in the ways that it ought to be done. Now, but I think one of the primary concerns here that we should be looking at is what exactly is the grievance of the, River State people, for instance, and the State House of Assembly against Governor Fubara at this time. Of course, the development resulted in the deployment of security operatives in the Assembly complex and other locations within the capital, Port Harcourt, of course. Now, this is the serious issue. As of the time of the report, no one can necessarily put a finger as to what is causing, all of this uprising. And then why is it a factionalized kind of issue? Why is the former governor's name coming up again in this state? And it takes us back to all of the conversation of Godfatherism. You have left, you should have left. Why do we still have your loyalists in a state trying to ferment, some kinds of problems? What has, Governor Fubara recently done that seems to be going against, has he done anything that is going against the desire of the River State people, and they see that, okay, if we leave this man to sit on the saddle of governance for the next 4 years, we'll be getting into trouble. But how much more is this, situation going to turn now that he has been served an impeachment notice?
Well, it's not going to amount to anything. I mean, if you watch what played out yesterday, we saw the River State youths, all of them, gathering and supporting Fubara. They literally walked with him from the House of Assembly complex down to the government house. That's to show you that the generality or the majority of the people in line with what Fubara is doing, or probably are in support of Fubara, as against the few at the State House of Assembly who are ganging up. Well, it's politics, and as far as politics is concerned, interest is always going to intertwine, and come at each other. And when those interests conflict with each other, you're going to see these power tussles playing out. But one thing that Fubara has currently working for him is the youth. And the youths are the power of the nation.
But they do not have the executive powers to impeach him or not. That's a move that the State House has already made.
Yes, it is the move that the State House of Assembly has. But who are the people in the State House of Assembly representing? It is the people. So when the people say your move is wrong, your move is against our interests as a people, what is going to happen? Now, in as much as the Nigerian police force are yet to come out with, investigations and tell Nigerians what exactly transpired at the House of Assembly complex, what if these were moves by the youths to forewarn the House of Assembly members that whatever political moves they're trying to make is anti-river people and they are not going to support it? Remember, when you're trying to take the will of the people, Nigerians have gotten to the point that they're no longer ready to sit by the fence. Yes, you have, the constitutions, you have the backing of the national, the House of Assembly. You are their representative, but as a representative, you're answerable to the people. And if you cannot answer to the people through dialogue, then you're going to answer through violence. That is the position Nigerians are beginning to go now. So the House of Assembly, yes, they are the ones who are going to move for the impeachment. They are the ones to sit through the impeachment. But when the people say, you are not going to impeach the governor that represents our interests because of your own personal selfish interests, it's not going to happen either which ways. But of course, we'd like to see how that is going to happen. But let's give voice to Governor Fubara's speech as yesterday.
Let me say the good people of Rivers State. It's very unfortunate, very, very unfortunate that we should be experiencing this kind of thing again. After about 9 years ago, when we had a similar experience, I got information, distressing information, very late yesterday. And I said this morning, I will come and see for myself. The truth about it, in our dear state, everybody who knows me knows I'm a peaceful person.
Yes.
So I can never, for any reason, even if I'm aware that there is plot to impeach me for whatever reason, I'm not bothered about it. But I'm worried that a facility like this, that we used taxpayers' money to build, will be destroyed for selfish reason, just to please somebody. It's unfortunate.
Very unfortunate.
I'm calling on the security agencies. From what I've seen, the security agencies even compromised.
Exactly.
They were shooting at me. They were shooting at me. This operation was shooting at me directly. Yes. But it doesn't matter. Somebody will die one day.
Yes. I want to die with you.
I want to die. When people hear Fubara, they say, who is this Fubara? Is that man that was killed one time for a struggle? That is what I want to be. I am not against anybody. I am not planning anything against anybody. But I don't know where all these things are coming from. Let it be put on record. Whoever masterminded this thing is trying to shift. I had some people gathered here to do whatever. That is purely rubbish. Purely rubbish. You cannot sit when there is a problem and you say you're doing anything. What are you doing? I'm the chief security officer. I'm the head of the government. The first person that should come, declare the place, and create an alternative place for assembly to sit. So whatever action for our good people of River State, I know you're prayerful. You've been praying for.
Of course, these are very, very grave concerns. First of all, let's look at the security implication of what is happening in River State at the moment. The alleged bomb blast, whatever that was, the magnitude that was released. It's tensing. It's making the security architecture tense up right now. People have to be more careful because we don't know what this is, and it's an undulating conversation about rivalry between Nyesom Wike and February. Now these are speculations because the likes of Nyesom Wike haven't come to say, oh, this is what is happening. He has literally not even given a statement yet as to moves to impeach his successor. Remember very strongly that during the campaigns of February into office, Nyesom Wike was largely behind him, sponsorship and everything. So speculations of what might Fubara, what did Fubara do? What might he have done to step on his predecessor's toes that will be causing this. But then again, there is also a very large possibility that Nyesom Wike has no hand in whatever is happening. But when political issues begin to spring up, people want to drag all parties that have hitherto been involved. But it's going to spring up in several different ways. Of course, as expected, it's going to develop today. We see that in the State House of Assembly in Rivers State, some, State House members that were perceived as being loyalists to Fubara have been suspended, from the House, just to more like give way to every other person that is not on his side to move the impeachment. Now, one big question is going to be this impeachment: is it for the good of Rivers State, or is it just for the greed and motive of certain stakeholders within the state?
Well, if you ask that question, it could be answered in multiple ways. First and foremost, let's take a cue from what Governor Fubara said. An House of Assembly complex, the meeting point of the legislators, under attack. Then within that time frame that the House of Assembly complex is under attack, legislators allegedly sat and make decisions that would affect the livelihood of the Cross River State people. Now, how do you sit? How do you hold plenary in the midst of chaos? That's the first question any right-thinking person will ask. How is it possible for the National House of Assembly members to hold plenary sessions and come to a logical decision when there is chaos in the State House of Assembly? It is completely impossible. I mean, okay, were you scampering for safety while you're raising your hands in support or against the motion? How did you do it? Nigerians would want to know. The River State people would want to know. Is it you had bomb blasts in one hand, on the other ear, and then on this other ear, you're hearing the proceeding in the State House of Assembly? You are looking with one eye to see whether you're supposed to run for your safety, or and then the other eye is watching what is happening in the House. I mean, it's just beyond explanation. So clearly, this is a political, an attempt to politically maneuver Fubara for whatever reason. And I would always go back to the action that was taken by the River State people. And if you know Rivers, Cross River State, the youths are like the strongest power in Cross River State. Wike understood that. Wike has spoken about that severally, even during the campaigning period. Wike spoke about the power of the youth, and of course, had always worked with the youths. So if you have the majority of the youth community behind Fubara, strongly supporting him, then it therefore means whatever is happening at the State House of Assembly is a move by a few politicians to get ahead of themselves. And that will just likely not see the end of the day. And like Fubara said in his speech, he's the chief executive officer of the state. And so once he has declared, I don't know what if there are constitutional backing to that, but that's something we'll like to probably ask a lawyer about. If it said, as the chief security of the state, everything that has happened with this chaotic period cannot hold water, then definitely I like to believe before he made that statement, he must have looked up the provisions, the constitutional provisions that guide his powers as the chief executive of the state.
For God's sake, we are talking about the governor of the state.
Exactly.
He's going to be widely abreast with, what his powers are within the state. It's just a move that is, it's more like it's a back corridor move by the State House of Assembly at this point. And what does it imply when all of the people perceived to be his loyalists are taken out of their positions just so they can move an impeachment? Even all of the moves of the State House of Assembly members in Rivers State needs to be questioned. Why do you need to suspend these other people because they are not in support of an impeachment move? Why don't you take your vote and go ahead with the numbers that you have? Why suspend them? It just means you're looking for a way to have a field day with whatever these activities are. But of course, we're going to keep tabs on how the story continues to develop in Rivers State. What is the fate of Governor Fubara as it stands? Is this a fight between the will of the people of Rivers and the State House of Assembly? We'll let the particular story to rest. We do hope that the security situation in the state at this time, that security agencies can heighten the activities and let the good people of Rivers be safe in the midst of all of this. But let's move up to the very next flash story. We see that Nigeria-Germany has signed a $700 billion solid minerals exploration pact, what does this mean for economic development in Nigeria? When we continue to sign more of these parks, I think yesterday we're talking about the Chinese loan, monies that had been borrowed from China for different projects in the country. How well have these projects been executed? Now we're coming to 700 billion US dollars for solid minerals. Solid minerals in Nigeria is one aspect that has not necessarily been tapped. We have depended solely on oil and gas, for instance. So, but we know that since President Bola Ahmed Tinubu came into office, he had continued to say that the sector of solid minerals is going to be widely explored so that we can develop on this sector. Now, going to get this particular exploration pact, how well is this going to impact on that sector?
Well, of course, we saw that the Minister for Solid Minerals Development, Dele Alake, who made the disclosure, said it's an agreement for exploration and exploitation of mineral deposit in the country. And of course, as far as the revenue generation for Nigeria is concerned, our dependence on oil have been questioned across board on all sides. And of course, there have also been conversations about the need for Nigeria to diversify. And so far, we haven't seen much of that diversification yielding in other things or other sectors outside of outside of crude oil. They've been moved by the government. The immediate past administration attempted to really boost exports in terms of agriculture, but that is not really sitting out well as it should have been. When you look at the possibility with over 70% of Nigerian arable land not cultivated, it means we have not even tapped 10% into what we potentially can produce and export as a people. Of course, this kind of investment will significantly, is hoped, significantly to generate the kind of investment, the kind of exploration and exploitation of solid minerals across the states of the Federation that will lead to Nigeria actually sending out a different alternative that can probably favorably compete with the revenue that comes in as a result of the activities within the oil sector. Now, no, yeah, you know that literally there is no state in Nigeria that is not blessed with one or two mineral resources in large quantities that could be mined, exported, and then of course be a major source of revenue to add up to what Nigeria gets from the activities within the crude oil sector. But Nigerians would say, yes, these deals that are being signed, can the government be a lot more intentional and deliberate in it? Because you're looking at the possibility of foreign expatriates coming into the country. You're looking at also growing the local miners and giving them the certificate. Of course, you're also looking at the job opportunities that will be made available as a result of investment in this sector. So Nigerians are clamoring at this point. Yes, when we see deals like this being signed at the implementation level, let us not look past face value. Let us not play politics with the implementation. Rather, let's get to do due diligence and ensure that the funds that are being, the deals that are being signed, the funds that are being released are channeled properly to the right sectors and invested right. And then, of course, when it comes to employment quota across these sectors, that Nigerians are very much carried along. And that's through those kinds of means and commitment on the part of the federal government, will we be able to solve some of the problems? Yes, you can have the investment coming in, but when your people are not carried along, it so means that you're just bringing those investment, and as the investment are coming out, you're sending it back to other countries of the world to further boost their economy at the detriment of Nigeria's economy.
Well, most of these things are happening on the heel of the German Chancellor's visit, Olaf Scholz, to the president in Nigeria at this time. Of course, we remember that he didn't arrive the country on his own. He came with certain expatriate CEOs of frontline businesses in Germany and Berlin. Of course, the company that this has been signed with is Geoscan GmbH, and of course, it's an advanced technology with cutting-edge technology, rather, capable of exploring mineral deposits up to 10,000 meters below the earth. Now, Dele Alake has said with the kind of technology that they do solid minerals business with, it's going to be more profitable for Nigeria than the current processes that we use in exploring solid minerals in the country. Of course, we're also seeing that he emphasized that the cost effectiveness of the proprietary technology is going to handle, it's taking care of about 80%. It's about 80% cheaper than what Nigeria currently uses in exploring of solid minerals in Nigeria. Of course, we'll be able to also locate all the natural minerals across different places in the state. And I think that where this brings us in terms of developing resources and contributing to the GDP of the country across board is that if we tap the natural resource that is available in different states of the Federation, we are going to go beyond depending on the Niger Delta people for oil, you know, on the South for oil. And then all of those rivalry that looks like, oh, the person that comes from ABC wants to, you know, encroach on the land that belongs to CDB because of the natural resources available there. We'll begin to hear less and less of these kind of stories because, I mean, the federal government would now have put in modalities on ground that make sure that every natural resource available in different states of the Federation is tapped. So they are contributing to the GDP of the nation and are also receiving back for, you know, hosting this resources. So this is a good move holistically when you look at it as made by, you know, Dele Alake and his ministry. Of course, he has said that this is not a result of an FEC meeting, rather it's a result of the visit by Olaf Scholz to the country and some of the deliberations that they have put on the table. But like we'd always say, beyond MOUs that are being signed, let's begin to see implementation strategies put forward by the federal government, put forward by the ministers in charge of these kinds of initiatives. When you have signed a pact of 700 billion US dollars, how do you intend to break it down? It's not a matter of, you know, when the monies are released or the initiatives and the projects start, we now see substandard activities happening as opposed to these promises that have been reeled out by Dele Alake on behalf of the federal government with regards to exploration of solid minerals.
Well, Nigerians would expect that that is going to be being implemented. And like I said earlier, deals are always very beautiful. Policies are always very lofty, very people focused when they're being given as press releases by the agents of government. But when it gets to the implementation level, it becomes a problem, and Nigerians would wish and hope that this does not become a regular thing. But moving away from that, of course, Nigerians are still reacting to the verdict given by the Supreme Court over the appeal made by the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Atiku Abubakar, and of course that of Peter Obi. Recall that the Supreme Court had on Thursday delivered his judgment upholding the election of Ahmed Bola Tinubu as the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. They also threw out the appeal filed by Atiku Abubakar to fill in fresh evidence as far as the academic records of President Ahmed Bola Tinubu is concerned. Well, of course, we saw that the PDP presidential candidate held a news conference in Abuja at the PDP secretariat where he suggested an amendment to the constitution to ensure that election petitions are decided before swearing in. Now, he accused the Supreme Court of taking sides with the All Progressive Congress, APC, and the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC. He said the IES court dismissed the appeals filed by him and his Labour Party counterpart, Peter Obi, unmeritoriously. And of course, the ruling All Progressive Congress, in reaction, described Atiku's tirade against the Supreme Court and his claim as delusional and unsubstantiated. But let's give voice to what Atiku had to say and then come back to this conversation.
Someone asked me, what would I do if I lost my election petition appeal at the Supreme Court? In response, I said that as long as Nigeria wins, the struggle would have been worth the while. By that, I meant that the bigger laws would not be mine, but Nigeria's, if the Supreme Court legitimizes illegality, including forgery, identity theft, and perjury, as it has done. If the Supreme Court, the highest court in the land, implies by its judgment that crime is good and should be rewarded, then Nigeria has lost, and the country is doomed irrespective of who occupies the presidential seat. If the Supreme Court decides that the electoral umpire, INEC, can tell the public one thing and then do something else in order to reach a corruptly predetermined outcome, then there is really no hope for the country's democracy and electoral process. Obviously, the consequences of those decisions for the country will not end at the expiration of the current government. They will last for decades. I am absolutely sure that history will vindicate me. We now know what the Supreme Court has decided. At critical points in my political life, I always ignored the easy but ignorable path in choosing the difficult but dignified path, the path of truth, of morality, of democracy, and the rule of law. I always chose freedom over servitude. Whatever the personal discomforts my choice entails. When I joined politics, the critical challenge was easing the military out of power so that civilian democratic governance could be restored in Nigeria. It later became a very defining struggle, and as one of the leaders of that struggle, I was targeted for elimination. In one incident, 9 policemen guarding my home in Kaduna were murdered in an attempt to assassinate me. I was also forced into exile for 9 months because of that incident. In addition, my interest in a logistics company that I co-owned was confiscated and given to friends of the military government. As vice president in the civilian government that succeeded the military, I, again, at great personal cost, chose to oppose the extension of the tenure of the government beyond the 2 4-year terms enshrined in our constitution. At the current historic moment, the easier option for me would have been to fall off and retreat after the mandate banditry perpetrated by the APC and INEC. But I went to the Nigerian courts to seek redress. I even went to an American court to help with unraveling what our state institutions charged with such responsibilities were unwilling.
One thing must be established. The presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Atiku Abubakar, is in his right to express the concerns that he perceives, and some things that he highlights as irregularities with regards to how all of the proceedings of election petitions have gone so far. It's also sorry and worrying for you to hear some of the personal incidences that have happened to him, in the course of all of this. But some people are still going to ask, with this kinds of press conference, what difference is it going to make? I think the voice of, Atiku Abubakar at this time, if you put it up under the microscope of the things that the retired Justice Danjiri had said, then it's going to keep brewing more questions. But the issue with this is, with these questions, the ones that Atiku Abubakar is raising, the kinds of concerns that the retired Justice of the Federal Republic raised exist. Who is going to answer these questions? These are serious questions. These are serious allegations. The judiciary really play a part in supporting or covering up something that is irregular? Have we really addressed the inconsistencies that we actually did see and experience in the cycle of election that we just had? All of the irregularities that INEC played by. What exactly has the court of jurisdiction asked that INEC do? I think most of the things that it looks like what most Nigerians believe, it looks like the concentration more was in establishing the fact that yes, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu was duly elected by Nigerians, but beyond giving that verdict, all the other issues that were raised were there squarely addressed to the satisfaction of the people. And I know that a lot of times lawyers and legal luminaries will tell you that this justice is done by the Constitution, but also you must also look at the morality of issues when they're being explored. It just leaves a lot of questions hanging at this time.
Well, it's a bit of a problem for Nigerians at this point in time. When you look at some of the key things highlighted by Atiku Abubakar, there have been things that have been given voice to by the likes of Adrian Clark, who has always been consistent, the likes of Femi Falana, who has also spoken seriously about these different concerns. The 1999 Constitution needs to be holistically overhauled and changed, and issues as far as the present reality is concerned, and the needs of Nigerians need to be addressed in the new constitution. But of course, you also look at the certificate forgery case, which of course is a very big issue for not just the presidential candidates, Atiku Abubakar, the Labour Party, but the generality of Nigerians. Nigerians haven't forgotten. I think it's the cause of this week that Nigerians, were reminded that Mesoma, the young girl who forged her JAM result, has actually traveled outside the shores of Nigeria to pursue her academic dreams as one of the persons who promised her scholarship outside the shores of Nigeria came through with that promise. But outside of Mesoma's case, bring that down to President Ahmed Bola Tinubu's, academic records and the issues surrounding it. Did the Supreme Court look into the issue to authenticate that, yes, for a fact, Ahmed Bola Tinubu has not been found guilty of falsifying evidence or falsifying academic records? Which
is actually meant to be a strong issue under the INEC guidelines. Now,
regardless of whether or not those things were filed within stipulated time or not, I think another conversation Nigeria is asking, maybe Atiku Abubakar needs to file it fresh, not just as a part of election petition, but as a case on its own. Let's get to ask the president, are your academic records true or not? And let's get to see what the courts in Nigeria will get to do with the evidences provided for. Because yes, if you say the time frame for it to be filed as part of the election petition cases had elapsed, then it doesn't mean that it cannot be filed as a fresh suit against the president. And in the event that that is filed, Nigerians will want to see how this is going to play out. But the big question is, does Atiku Abubakar, or is there anybody in Nigeria who has the moral power to even trust the Nigerian judiciary at this point in time to take up that case? Or are we going to say, okay, we've seen what is playing out, even at the Apex Court, the Supreme Court has, taken its stand, so chances are, even if another person institutes the case against Atiku Ahmed Bola Tinubu, it just might spiral out the same way that Atiku Abubakar got the verdict from the Supreme Court. So it's a lot of concerns, which is not really doing well for Nigeria. Remember, on the heels of all of these, schools, countries had already begun to blacklist Nigerians, and of course had already listed Nigerians as one of the countries with the highest falsification of academic records.
And that should absolutely make the Nigerian judiciary look into the issue. Even if you say, it's inadmissible at this time with regards to election petition, like you rightly say, when investigations are being done into issues, I don't think it's usually, like a benchmark for when you say, fresh evidences can no longer be admitted with regards to this case. Well, that's why there are investigations. There are situations and cases that verdicts had hitherto been given in the law court, but they will tell you that with regards to fresh evidence obtained because of this and that. This is why, you know, we are going to revisit the case. So those are things that are, you know, available within the confines of the law. Now, I think one of the issues that is alarming in the season that we're currently in is when Nigerians feel like, you know, the legal luminaries, the justices, are making it look like, yes, because it is the law, the average man cannot, you know, understand what it's meant to be. I mean, simple, basic logic, you know, around situations. Then add it to the Constitution and give us your interpretation. That's fine. But it seems to be like, oh, this is what the Constitution says. This is how the Constitution says. You're interpreting sections and subsections, you know, just in the way that you believe that legal luminaries understand. What happens to the, you know, normal proceedings of cases? Well, just like you said, most Nigerians believe that if this case can be reintroduced as a separate case, but to what end would that now be? But I think another major concern with all of this election and petition tribunal and the proceedings so far, Nigerians are worried by the language of it has happened, the technicalities have happened, let us move forward, let us move on from that situation, having received the verdict of the Supreme Court, and let's move the country forward. I've seen a lot of reportage and a lot of articles and responses by Nigerians being uncomfortable with the fact that it feels more like, let's sweep this issue under the carpet and let's move forward because the Supreme Court has given a verdict. But there's still a lot to look forward to in this particular case, because it looks like you know, the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party is not resting with his expression of discontent. We seem to not have heard so much yet by the presidential candidates of the Labour Party. But let's see how this case continues to develop. Let's look at one big issue again this morning. Out of the FEC meeting, we received, of course, the information that 2.17 trillion naira has been accented to as the second supplementary budget for the year 2023. This year we have 2 more months to go. We are literally on the last day of October. Tomorrow is the 1st of November. 2 months to go. We have a 2.17 trillion naira accent to second supplementary budget for the year. Now we saw the fact that Atiku Bagudu, the Minister of Budget and Economic Planning, of course, he made the revelation, and we are seeing certain breakdown that has been given to this budget. Now, out of this 2.17 trillion naira proposed supplementary budget by the federal government, we see that 605 billion naira will be expended on national defense and security, while about 300 billion naira will be earmarked for the maintenance of bridges. We know that we've had certain issues, even with the very lofty bridge that was done by the former administration, of things getting, you know, stolen and the likes of that. 300 billion naira has been earmarked for maintenance of bridges. We have the third mainland bridge in Lagos that has also been put up for maintenance because a lot has been happening there. So 300 billion naira. We also see that 210 billion naira would go for the payment of wage awards to civil servants. Today is the last day that warning strike by the NLC-TUC is meant to take effect from the 1st of November. They were going to reconsider if they were going to go on a strike after 30 days given to the federal government to, you know, implement on the MOU that was signed between the federal government and, you know, NLC-TUC with regards to the wage award. Now, of course, we see that as a result of this 2.17 trillion naira agreed as supplementary budget, we see that 210 billion naira will be set aside for the payment of this wage award. We don't know if this is going to suffice as a strong statement for the federal government, you know, in the eyes of the NLC and the TUC. Is it strong enough to make, you know, work continue unhindered by any form of strike? 400 billion has been set aside for cash transfers to vulnerable households, Francis. 400 billion naira set aside. I think I would like to piggyback out of this 2.17 trillion naira, how much of this is going to be borrowed and how much of this has been generated from internal revenue in the country?
Well, the first thing we need to look at is the commitment on the part of the federal government. We can say, yes, maybe they are making a move for the first time to ensure that they meet up with the demands of the organized labor in attending to the needs of Nigerians, which is occasioned by the removal of the fuel subsidy. But on the whole, we know that the federal government has borrowed different amount of money from 800 million US dollars and other amount 400, I think it was 800 then 400 million US dollars, which the federal government said they were going to use to address the issues occasioned by, the removal of the fuel subsidy. So all of these is a step. Nigerians would say yes, the federal government is moving in the right direction. But of course, we also see from here that 18 billion naira will be provided for the Independent National Electoral Commission for the conduct of the by-elections in Bayelsa, Kogi, and Imo State. We also see that 5.5 billion naira will be set aside for the funding of the take-off of the student loans, which is scheduled to begin disbursement by January of 2024. Of course, the supplementary budget also includes 8 billion naira for takeoff of grant of new ministries and 200 billion naira for capital supplementation to deal with urgent requests made by the president from various parts of the country. Those are some of the things that have been highlighted by the federal government that the budget is going to take care of. But is a step taken in the right direction? Now just wait to see the implementation of all of these funds that the federal government has told us the supplementary budget is meant to cushion, to take care of. And of course, we wait to see if indeed the conditional cash transfer, the trade money, and other things that have been listed will actually get there. But the concerns on Nigerians is let's get the criteria right and let's be able to measure and look back on the number of people who have actually been able to benefit from the different schemes initiated by the government.
Well, we should be wrapping up on this segment right now. But there's been a funny one happening in the presidency. Remember that Femi Gbajabiamila is the chief of staff to the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And in recent days, it looks like there's been hush-hush conversations and some allegations of him trading appointments at the presidency. And as a result of these allegations, some moves have been made requesting that the president remove Femi Gbajabiamila as his CSO. But we saw yesterday that the president came out to give a vote of confidence to his chiefs of staff, of course, saying that he has full confidence in the person of Femi Gbajabiamila and in his adjudication of duties at the presidency. These are allegations that have been put forward by certain stakeholders and certain quarters. These things that are verifiable. But I mean, when your boss comes out to say that nonetheless, no matter what the allegations are, that he is satisfied about the duties and the roles carried out by Femi Gbajabiamila at the presidency. And I think that just gives and puts rest to the whole allegations put forward against Femi Gbajabiamila.
Well, does it actually put rest to it? That is debatable at this point. I mean, the allegations are that Gbajabiamila is trying to overturn some of the key decisions that were made by the previous administration and single-handedly trying to do so. Now, questions are these policies or moved by Femi Gbajabiamila in the interest of Nigerians? Is it in the interest of the masses, or is just in the interest of a few people within the ranks and file of this administration? Now, the federal government, the presidency will always come to counter claims when issues like that arise. But Nigerians would say, let's watch and let's see if the allegations will come true. And then we'll get to actually see the reactions from Nigerians when or in the event that the allegations that have been put forward by these different groups come forward and become a living reality. But that's the much we can take. We'll take a pause and we head out to the front pages of national dailies and Daily Spotlight.
Daily Spotlight, bringing you information from the front pages of our national dailies. Our first stop this morning will be the Vanguard, looking at information making the rounds. Of course, we see the big story there, chaos erupts in Rivers. That's the big story on the Vanguard this morning. Of course, we're looking at several issues: hoodlums, bomb, burn state assembly, 24 legislators sign impeachment notice against Governor Fubara. 26 lawmakers suspend Speaker. 3 others install Edison. Go to court. New Speaker tells aggrieved lawmakers at John's house. Sign dine. Okay, we also see here security operatives shot directly at me. Of course, Subara alleged challenges 24 legislators to list his offense, condemns burning of assembly. Of course, we really need to know what Governor Fubara's offense is at this time. We also see here police command launches investigation. PDP governors summon emergency meeting, of course, today to look into what's happening in Rivers State. FEC approves 2.17 trillion 2023 supplementary budget. Page 20 is where you're going to find details of that particular story. Electricity sector privatization has failed. Federal government admits. Page 12. After 10 years, we haven't seen a lot of improvement in that sector. We also see here autonomy. Oyo, Edo, Kano, Ogun. Until assembly workers begin indefinite strike. Page 7 is where you can find details. Of course, we see here tributes as elder statesman Wabweze dies at 94. We have seen the President of the Federal Republic send his condolences to the family of Wabweze. Q3 2023, UBA records 115% growth in earnings. UBA seems to be doing very great this year. In spite of all that is happening in the economy. Of course, there's a pictorial story there of the mayhem that happened in Rivers State yesterday. Supreme Court verdict. Struggle continues as long as I breathe, says Atiku. Nigeria greater than your selfish ambition. Presidency, APC tells ex-vice president. Page 9 is where you can have details of all of that story. Protest rock jaws ever alleged conflicting tribunal judgment. I hope that these are not the kinds of things, that the judiciary wants us to begin to see across the country. Let's make sure that once tribunal, once these cases and the verdicts are given, it is transparent enough for everybody to see that it is what it is. But that's all that we have on the front page of the Vanguard.
And next up is the front page of a Nigerian Tribune. The kicker there says mayhem in Rivers. Stakeholders allege Wike Fubara at war. Suspected thugs set House of Assembly ablaze. House removed majority leader serves governor with impeachment notice. Tell me why you want to impeach me, Governor Fubara. Another faction elects new speaker. Police deploy water cannon, tear gas to disperse protesting youths. Government affected. Call Wike to order, Adrian Clark tells presidency. That story is on page 15 of the Nigerian Tribune. History will vindicate me over Supreme Court judgment. That's coming from Atiku Abubakar. 70 bodies found in Abia community. That's on page 28. Police arrest 2 pupils for setting school property ablaze. That story is on page 25. How seniority arrangements stall appointment of new Supreme Court justices. That story is on page 4. Those are the major stories you'll find on the front page of the Nigerian Tribune this morning.
Moving away from the Nigerian Tribune, our very next stop will be the Nation newspaper. Big story, same old, same old. Rivers quakes as governor gets impeachment notice. Of course, all the other sublime stories on the raid. We also see, of course, FEC OK's 2.17 trillion 2023 supplementary budget. We see 5.9 billion naira for FCT roads. Page 5 is where you can find details. Nigeria, Germany signed 700 billion solid minerals exploration park. Stories on the front page of the Nation this morning. Bayelsa Imo Kogi 2023. Security agencies will ensure credible elections. Ribadu promises. Imo students endorse Uzodima's re-election bid. Odds favor Diri, says Ikioba. More defections APC in Kogi. We also see here U.S. court declines request seeking release of Tinubu's FBI record. That was something that was in the expectation box, but U.S. court has denied it. Of course, CNG buses will revolutionize transport sector. Saudi hospital to separate Kanu conjoined twins. Ayedatiwa back in court. That's all that we have on the front page of the Nation.
Next up is Daily Trust. We have the kicker there. 7 weeks after Tinubu's visit, Nigeria UAE rule lingers. Of course, Nigerians in UAE cry out over work permit, visa ban. Federal government working to resolve issue. Official decries slow pace in resolving diplomatic role. That's the reason, page 4 of Daily Trust. We also see Tinubu Atiku continue feud after Supreme Court verdict. Judgment mandate bandit robbery ex-VP. Your inordinate ambition doomed presidency. That's the reason, page 4 of the Daily Trust. Still on the front page of Daily Trust, FEC approved 2.18 trillion naira for 2023 supplementary budget. Page 4 has a story. We also see impeachment plot. PDP governors meet today to save Rivers governor. That's the reason, page 11. 90 million Nigerians lack access to electricity. President 25th dead in Cross River Benue communities boundary dispute. Those are the major stories you find on the front page of Daily Trust this morning.
Let's finally take a look at the Punch. Just taking stories that we haven't taken on the front pages of any other paper this morning. Of course, Tinubu canvasses 2 trillion naira discourse, recapitalization tariff review. Page 21, of course, that conversation is for the power sector in Nigeria. We also see retired now presidency tells Atiku, ex-VP, rubbishes Supreme Court judgment. Apex Court legitimizes illegality. Atiku insists, urges INEC to verify credentials. Atiku's presidential ambition doomed. Ex-VP desperate, says APC and presidency. Ohaneze Soludo mourn as legal icon Wabuze dies at 94. Let's see what other story. Taraba government mourns 100 boat accident victims. Of course, have ordered a probe into that situation. These are all the stories that we have on the front page of the Punch, and the much that we can take on the front pages of the national dailies. Feel free to pick up any of these papers to seek the details therein. At this point, we'll just switch up now and head to the newsbrief desk, where we have Mary Joseph on standby to bring us tidbits of global news. When we return, we'll be exploring some of the serious issues. Of course, still looking at the retiring speech of the Justice Dantiri. When we return, Rise and Shine continues to stay with us.
Every day marks a day of significance.
That in view of the apology tendered by this former minister who had earlier been cleared by this August Assembly,
as we face critical issues, developments and events which shape our social and political landscape here in Nigeria and beyond. Political Spectrum is a program specially designed to help make sense of all the moving parts of developments and occurrences in our nation's polity and political economy.
There is nothing wrong with Nigeria, but there's everything wrong.
The educational history of public figures holds significance beyond mere biographical details.
From executive, legislative and judicial developments at national and subnational levels to international diplomacy and relations.
Join us for exclusive interviews with key political figures, expert opinions, analysts, thought-provoking conversations for and against, shedding light on the major issues that matter. We will always keep you updated on the most factual, smartest and unbiased reportage.
Stay tuned to Political Spectrum. Political Spectrum. All sides matter at the round table. Political Spectrum. Exclusive to Spectrum Television.
Government, Secretary General, delegates.
Voting for Spectrum TV to recover 40 lapses
As of state and government, Secretary General, delegates.
Voting for Spectrum TV to recover 40 lapses.
A very good morning to you and welcome to your morning news brief on Spectrum live from Uyo. I am Mary Joseph. We begin this morning with Nigeria's leader, the Federal Executive Council, where he has approved a 2023 supplementary budget of 2.1 trillion naira. While speaking after the FEC meeting on Monday in Abuja, the Minister of Budget and Economic Planning, Atiku Bagudu, said the budget is to fund urgent issues. According to him, there will be allocations to maintain previous projects and progress on national security and agriculture. The budget will also convey 4 months of wage awards for federal government workers and student loan funds. We head straight to the power sector, where the federal government has admitted that partial privatization of the Nigerian electricity supply industry, NESI exercise, had failed to meet its objective 10 years after. The government described as shameful the current generation, transmission and distribution level of just over 4,000 megawatts. Speaking in Abuja at the 2023 NESI Market Participant and Stakeholders Roundtable, NMPSR, President Bola Tinubu said after 10 years of privatization, about 90 million Nigerians were still without power supply. Meanwhile, President Bola Tinubu has expressed confidence in the integrity of his Chief of Staff, Femi Gbajabiamila. The president, before the week's Federal Executive Council meeting, commended inside the Council Chambers State House, said all campaigns of calumny and insinuations against his Chief of Staff should stop. The president spoke to issues he had observed and had not been comfortable with, including unauthorized persons gaining access into the council chambers of the State House. We head straight to the foreign scene, where Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has rejected calls for a ceasefire in Gaza, saying it would amount to a surrender in Hamas. Speaking in Tel Aviv, Netanyahu cites and cites the Bible as he says this is time for war. Meanwhile, UN aid agencies repeated their calls for a humanitarian ceasefire at an emergency UN Security Council meeting. UNICEF says the situation in Gaza is growing worse by the hour, and the true cost of his latest escalation will be measured in children's lives. In sports, Argentina and Inter Miami forward Leon Messi has won the men's Ballon d'Or for an 8th time. The 36-year-old was recognized at the ceremony in Paris after helping his country win the World Cup in Qatar last year. Meanwhile, England and Real Madrid midfielder Jude Bellingham won the Copa Trophy for the world's best player aged under 21. Messi won his record-extending Ballon d'Or award ahead of Manchester City forward Erling Haaland. We'll have details of this and many more in our news at 12. I am Mary Joseph. Let's get back to Rise and Shine, where we have Francis and Uyai on standby. You'll have a wonderful day.
Voting for Spectrum TV to recover for the lapses in
government, Secretary General,
voting for Spectrum TV to recover for the lapses
as of state and government, Secretary General,
voting for Spectrum TV to recover for the lapses
Business exists only to meet the needs of the people, but there's an extra advantage if your product and services are pitched on a platform that gives you the added advantage over your competitors. For your desired return on investment and so much more, advertise on Spectrum Television, on StarTime's DTH Channel 421 and on free-to-air with a frequency of 12733. Spectrum Television, broadening your horizon.
Nigerian police, which is the only one allowed by grossly abused. Our governors have to share police powers with the president as stipulated by the constitution. We do not have a federal government police force. We have the Nigerian police force, which shall be administered, organized, and supervised by the Nigerian police force.
No, my lord, I want to say something. I want to say something here. Perhaps it might also enlarge the scope of people who should be invited here for examination. My lord, if we cannot find those who literally murdered Abiola, who are those people who could be said to be the beneficiaries of the death of Abiola?
Rogers has linked you with some of the killings he did.
He never did.
He linked you with the attempted murder of Hebrew.
He did not.
My lord, the Matters Council is leading the evidence in our matters.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord, but we can't be talking about cases which are in court.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord. These cases are in court, my lord. I'm just reminding you, your lordship.
My lord, sorry, my lord, I think I'll be in cross-examination.
Legally Speaking, a program that deals with legal issues and questions we face as citizens of this amazing country, Nigeria. Legally Speaking. Join us every
Friday from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m.
for Legally Speaking.
Every day marks a day of significance.
That in view of the apology tendered by this former minister who had earlier been cleared by this August Assembly,
as we face critical issues, developments and events which shape our social and political landscape here in Nigeria and beyond. Political Spectrum is a program specially designed to help make sense of all the moving parts of developments and occurrences in our nation's polity and political economy.
There is nothing wrong with Nigeria, but there's everything wrong.
The educational history of public figures holds significance beyond mere biographical details.
From executive, legislative and judicial developments at national and subnational levels to international diplomacy and relations.
Join us for exclusive interviews with key political figures, expert opinions, analysts, thought-provoking conversations for and against, shedding light on the major issues that matter. We will always keep you updated on the most factual, smartest and unbiased reportage.
Stay tuned to Political Spectrum. Political Spectrum. All sides matter at the round table. Political Spectrum. Exclusive to Spectrum Television.
International Day for the Eradication of Poverty is observed on 17 October every year. This day marks the adoption of the Convention on the Rights of the Child on 20th November 1989. In a world characterized by an unprecedented level of economic development, technological means, and financial resources, that millions of persons are living in extreme poverty is a moral outrage. Poverty is not solely an economic issue, but rather a multi-dimensional phenomenon that encompasses a lack of both income and the basic capabilities to live in dignity. Many persons living in poverty experience many interrelated and mutually reinforcing deprivations that prevent them from realizing their rights and perpetuate their poverty, including dangerous work conditions, unsafe housing, lack of nutritious food, unequal access to justice, lack of political power, limited access to health care. Over the past few decades, the world has made great strides in the fight against poverty. However, there is still much work to be done. The International Day for the Eradication of Poverty, celebrated annually on October 17th, aims to promote understanding and dialogue between people living in poverty and the wider society. This year's theme draws on first-hand testimonials showing that those trapped in extreme poverty often work long, exhausting hours in dangerous, unregulated conditions, but still cannot earn enough income to adequately support themselves and their families. This year's theme calls for universal access to decent work and social protection as a means to uphold human dignity for all people, and to emphasize that decent work must empower people, provide fair wages and safe working conditions, and fundamentally recognize the inherent value and humanity of all workers. Similarly, universal social protection is urgently needed to guarantee income security for everyone, prioritizing society's most vulnerable members. The theme is also a call to political leaders and policymakers to use human dignity as a guiding compass in all decision-making processes to ensure the advancement of fundamental human rights and social justice over the pursuit of corporate profit. Strong global partnerships between government, businesses, and civil society organizations are vital to achieving equitable development and ensuring no one is excluded or left behind. Therefore, this year's observance is a chance to stand in solidarity with people living in poverty, truly listen to their daily struggles, and renew commitment to create a just economy focused on protecting human and environmental well-being over maximizing financial gains. The ultimate goal is to eliminate poverty entirely by creating the conditions for everyone to live with dignity. It was Confucius, the Chinese teacher and philosopher, who said, "In a country well governed, poverty is something to be ashamed of. In a country badly governed, wealth is something to be ashamed of." This wise quote is not just, but a reminder, but an urgent call to government across states, nations, and continents of the world to live up to its oath of service and corruption, prefer solutions to economic challenges, and ensure equity in the distribution of resources for the general good. International Day for the Eradication of Poverty is observed on 17 October every year. International Day for the Eradication of Poverty is observed on 17 October every year. This day marks
Of course, poverty is one thing that we cannot move away from talking about as far as Nigeria is concerned, looking at the millions of Nigerians who are living below poverty line. Of course, a different move, the Renewed Hope social investment scheme taken up by the present administration of President Ahmed Bola Tinubu, spearheaded by Dr. Beta Edu, the lead in charge of the Humanitarian Affairs and Disaster Management Ministry. Of course, concerns about the supplementary budget that has just been approved by the Federal Executive Council as far as the remaining 2 months in the month of 2023, in the year 2023 rather, is concerned, in what those budgets breakdown have been designated to handle, which of course includes the wage award, which is meant to cushion the effect of the fuel subsidy removal. But as we wind down to the 30 days ultimatum that has been given to the federal government by the organized labor, talking about the NLC and the TUC, Nigerians are expecting and waiting to hear what the turn and taste of event will be. Recall there was a planned meeting between the NLC, TUC and the federal government yesterday, and the NLC and TUC had threatened to boycott the meeting, citing concerns about the failure and the inability of the President Ahmed Bola Tinubu's administration to regularize and normalize the disparity between the naira and the dollar. But of course, Nigerians wait to see what that is going to lead. In case you just joined us, this is Rise and Shine. Of course, the very last for the month of October, coming to you live on Spectrum Television, and we're broadcasting live from the very beautiful city of York, Kwabam State. Of course, we'll always encourage you to join the conversations on our social media platform, all of which you can find on our website, spectrumtvlive.ng. But one thing that is very disturbing this morning, is the protest by Nigerian youths in Lagos State and the Federal Capital Territory over the planned delivery of the SUV for lawmakers. Remember yesterday, the Nigerians had said, yes, you can have as an excuse that appointees of President Ahmed Bola, delivery of these very expensive SUVs is one that is another twist to the reaction by Nigerians since the news surfaced that the National Assembly members were trying to take home SUVs in the tune of 130 million or thereabout. Of course, they cited instances and reasons for the decision to purchase this particular brand of small utility vehicles as being durability and the capability of the legislators and the ability to actually be able to maintain it for 4 years. That means 4 years. That means throughout their tenure as legislators representing Nigerians. They also said it's to help them, do their work, which of course Nigerians have questioned the validity behind such purchase. One thing Nigerians have said is going to happen just before the elections, where the Nigerian youths were a lot more attentive, a lot more intentional. And this protest is just starting from the Federal Capital Territory and then Lagos State. There are expectations and anticipation that this might become another nationwide protest coming up.
Well, will Nigerians be in the right to protest the purchase of this 160 million SUV for lawmakers in the 10th Assembly? Well, they will be in their right. But the other question is, what impact will protesting this move make on the decision of the National Assembly to make these purchases? Remember, Nigerians have continued to raise an eyebrow with regards to this particular purchase. But I mean, we saw the chairman of the committee on service come out to boldly defend why they need these kinds of vehicles at this time. And I think one thing that we have widely established is the fact that Nigerians do not have a problem whether you get yourselves SUVs, in time past. The real issue here is that in keeping with the current realities on ground, it should be commonsensical for, the National Assembly to stand down this kinds of initiative. First of all, let us all agree to the actual truth that most of these people have these kinds of cars already parked in their houses. See the numbers. Imagine the chairman of the service committee having the boldness to come tell us that what is wrong if members of the National Assembly, if lawmakers have these vehicles. Do we see what the ministers drive? Is that exactly why they were, elected into those offices? yes, Nigerians have the right to, go out and protest. We see these moves made in Abuja and Lagos, of course, to oppose the delivery of this 160 million naira SUVs to lawmakers. They have the right to raise these questions, but who has what it takes to stand down on that purchase? Mr. President does. So who is going to deliver these concerns and put it right to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to know that this is not an initiative we think should be supported at this time? We're also looking at the case of motorcades. Just remember that this SUV is just one. None of these people moves around with less than 5 to 6 cars. Who is footing the bills for all these other vehicles? Let's have this conversation. I mean, our phone lines are open. Nigerians, please feel free to take advantage of the phone lines and let's hear your thoughts. Protest. Some people want to protest in Lagos and Abuja over this move. What's your take with lawmakers, getting these vehicles at 160 million naira each? Cut it across the over 200 of them that we have available in this houses, this tent assembly. Is this something that is worth doing? If at all, what are the solutions we can have? We have the opinion that if Mr. President can wade into this matter, it would help. We know of, public service holders in foreign countries, in other nations of the world, that even ply public transportation to get to work. They, get on the civilized trains of their country and head to work, not using motorcades of 6 and 10, disrupting the peace of this country. We have made so much fanfare out of politics and out of, public service. These are some of the things that Femi Falana, cried out just a few days ago. We have given them the kind of impetus that they ought not to have. Nigerians are the ones giving them this impetus. And someone needs to pluck off the feathers.
Well, if Nigerians are willing to pluck off the feathers of politicians, then we have the power to do that. After all, it's been clearly established that the power in the people is far greater than the power of the people in power. So Nigerians have the way with all to ensure that, whatever excesses on the part of politicians are being addressed holistically. But of course, are we ready to do that? These are a few years in Lagos and the Federal Capital Territory making the move. How will that sit? How many Nigerian youths are going to join the bandwagon of demanding for justice across the states of the Federation? Because it's not just the Lagos youths, it's not just youths in the Federal Capital Territory who are going to be able to achieve that. It is going to take the generality of Nigerians to be able to achieve that. But we'll see how this development is going to turn. Remember, during the NSAS protest, it all started with one movement, and before you knew it, we knew what was happening. The generality of the country, had taken to the streets to join in the protest. But another disturbing thing this morning is the fact that the EFCC, which is the anti-graft agency saddled with the responsibility or the mandate of fighting corruption, is oftentimes found wanting when the question bordering on sincerity, transparency, accountability of the funds that have been recovered from people who have been fingered for one corruption charges or the other comes to play. And we see that this morning, a federal high court in Abuja has ordered the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, as well as the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, to release the $9,773,200 and 74,000 pounds seized from the former group managing director of the Nigeria National Petroleum Corporation, NNPC, Andrew Yakubu. Of course, Justice Inyanyekwo gave the order yesterday to the EFCC and the CBN to release the money to be deposited in an interest-yielding account in the name of the court's chief registrar, pending when parties exhaust the rights of appeal. The reason for this, the justice held that it became imperative because the EFCC and the CBN were not truthful about the actual whereabouts of the money. Of course, the money was seized from Yakubu's Kaduna home on February 3rd, 2017. The EFCC thereafter charged him with money laundering, and he was arraigned before a federal high court in Abuja on March 16, 2017 on a 6-count charge. At the conclusion of the prosecution's case, Yakubu made a no-case submission, and in May 16, 2019 ruling, Justice Ahmed Mohammed discharged the defendant on count 5 and 6. Of course, the appeal has been ongoing and is still different issues arising from it. But the biggest concern here is the EFCC is supposed to be the agency saddled with the responsibility for fight corruption. And monies recovered or looted funds recovered by the EFCC is supposed to be kept somewhere. And when Nigerians ask for it, we're supposed to know that this is how much has been gotten from this person. This is where this money is, son. Now, at this point in time, the Federal High Court is saying the amount of money that have been seized by the EFCC and the Central Bank of Nigeria, at this point in time, nobody is accounting for that money. Nobody has spoken clearly about the whereabouts of the money. And that goes back to conversations where Nigerians will tell you, the EFCC is not fighting corruption. The EFCC itself is corrupt. And it is, you know, it is situations like this that further give credence to what Nigerians are saying. If you have recovered XYZ amount of money from somebody who has been fingered as being corrupt, as looting from the public treasury, and you yourself who recovered that money cannot account for where the money is at this material point in time, how can Nigerians therefore trust the agency that is supposed to be fighting corruption, but by itself, through its action, it seems to be corrupt?
Well, this is a really big issue because we are seeing a court order here asking that the seized monies to the tune of $9.8 million from the ex-NNPC GMD should be returned. Of course, we are seeing the, fight here says transfer Yakubu's seized funds to registrar's account. Court orders EFCC and CBN. Now, the big question is when these monies are recovered, when people are highlighted for corrupt practices and fraudulent activities, and these monies are recovered by the EFCC, by the ICPC, where should these monies be? What is the protocol of transparency that these institutions have attached to these kinds of proceedings? Because oftentimes we just hear this person was nabbed, this person was probed.
There are people within the agency who are also feeding fat from the so-called anti-corruption. People within the agency who are also feeding fat from the so-called anti-corruption fight. And I think that is one of the biggest questions that Nigerians are asking. The embattled EFCC, former EFCC chairman, Bawa, Abdulrashid Bawa, that was, incarcerated and recently released. What is the charges that the federal government is bringing up against him? And when you're bringing up a charge against Bawa, it is not going to, and it shouldn't be just about Bawa. It should also spread down to the ranks and files of people within the EFCC. Because whatever the man at the helm of affairs is doing, he's not going to do it alone. He's going to take some level of collaboration and partnership from his subordinate for him to be able to do whatever criminal activities is happening. And then this also is another big concern. The judiciary will always tell you, once we give the verdict, it is left for the executive to enforce. What is President Ahmed Bola Tinubu doing to enforce such laws or such verdict that has been given by the Nigerian judiciary? Because if we're sincere about the fight for corruption or the anti-corruption fight, we should see people within the ranks and file of the EFCC and the CBN being brought in for questioning, being prosecuted, if they cannot account for this. Because you can't say that, the millions of US dollars and pounds just developed wings and fly. Now, Nigerians will make a joke about it, that in this country, we've been told snake went into a government facility, swallowed millions of naira, and disappeared. And up until today, we have not been able to find those snakes. So, in a country where snakes, which of course, as far as science is concerned, when a snake swallows something big, it literally stays in that location for days, for weeks. But a snake goes into a government office, with the luxury and the height of everything, swallows money, disappears, and nobody has seen the snake. Nobody's talking about you as we sit today. It's a grave cause for concern. And if we have to piggyback on the conversation by the Interpol head, which of course just happened within the course of the week. Nigeria is a strategic position as far as criminal activities is concerned. Different syndicates operating in Nigeria. Why is it so? Why are criminals having a field day operating in Nigeria? Why are different criminal syndicates having a field day operating from Nigeria and then moving from Nigeria to gain access to other countries within the Sahel region? It comes down to issues of fighting corruption. It comes down to the inability on the part of government to implement policies, to implement guidelines, to enforce court orders that have been given against people who have been found wanting. And until we get to that point, Ahmed Bola Tinubu, as the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, cannot be said to be fighting corruption when the CBN, the EFCC will recover money, and then that money would find its way into people's hands, and we cannot account for it.
It's a big issue, but of course we are seeing how that the transfer of $9.8 million says from ex-NNPC GMD. Now that money has been asked to be returned to court registrar's account. The court registrar's account. We also see that about 74,000 pounds was recovered from Andrew Yakubu, who is the former managing director of the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, to an account under the control of the chief registrar of the court. Now, of course, Justice Inyangeko is the presiding judge over the case, and he said he found that EFCC and CBN had not been forthright concerning the whereabouts of the sums for which the suit was centered. So, I mean, forthrightness is an issue here. Of course, Yakubu had sued the CBN, EFCC, and GTB Bank over an alleged refusal to release his $9.8 million after court judgment acquitted him of fraud charges. So there's a lot of back and forth here between the bank, the EFCC, and now the court. We know that the legislative arm of government is one thing, but the executive usually is the arm that is saddled with the responsibility of implementing. So implementation is a strong struggle in this country. We'll get the judgment out, but who gets the judgment executed is one thing. And we need to see how our systems can become more transparent, whether we are taking it to INEC, whether we're taking it to EFCC, ICPC, or the Central Bank of Nigeria for that matter. Any institution that safeguards the resources, the collective resources of the Nigerian people, should, as much as possible under the sun, be transparent with the proceedings and the processes that are involved in all of these activities. Nigerians should know that if the worth of our collective taxation stands at a particular tune, this is what the federal government used it for. Now, if we would add transparency, I beg your pardon, to the mix, it will help us to be more accountable as a federal government to the people and the people to the federal government. And these checks and balances are very, very necessary. And we do hope that the likes of our lawmakers will stand up to the occasion and go beyond, all of the frivolities of governance. I think it was someone that was saying, some of our politicians they now behave and think that they are celebrities. So you're living your life, for the gram. You're behaving like, people that are in entertainment. You want to drive the latest cars and show us that you're driving the latest cars. Policy making, law making, implementation, think tank for the nation's furtherance is no celebrity work. It's not fanfare. We need to see lawmakers and people in this country that are willing to sit down, give interpretation and implementation to the things that matter the most in the country. And like we would always say, let us go beyond this call now by the Justice Inyangeko-led courts with regards to this case. Let's see beyond him asking that this monies be returned to the accounts of the court registrar. Francis, that's another issue. When you say the monies should be returned to the accounts of the court registrar, what is the room that makes these monies to be returned to that particular account? Why is that the allocated account for the refunds of these funds that have been repatriated from corruption allegations?
Well, of course, as far as the verdict by Justice Inyangeko is concerned, it's talking about holding fort until issues have been resolved, and it's going to be an interest account. So I'm sure he must have looked into the constitutional provisions of that and what that would amount. But if you're talking about an interest-generating account, that means as the money is there, the interest that is being generated, when the time calls for it to be sent out, is going to be the money that was paid in and the interest that it has generated.
Who will take the
Of course, it's going back to the coffers of government, and we do hope. But for politicians who think, the legislature, particularly the executive, and every arm of government who feel that, being in politics or being in government is a cause for living the luxurious life of the celebrities. Let's know that celebrities, people within the entertainment space, have worked themselves out to earn whatever luxurious life they are living. So if you want to live that life, maybe you take a break from politics and try to be an entertainer. Then Nigerians will excuse you to live that life. But as long as you are within the ranks and file of government, you've been elected or appointed to save Nigerians. It's about time for you to rise up, because as they say, when the people get pushed to the wall, the time will come when Nigerians will rise again, and God forbid that it gets to that point again. Nigerians will tell you the NSAS protest was just an aspect of what could possibly happen, and we never want to get to that point or something far worse than that. But for us to not get to the point where Nigerians are pushed to the wall, the leaders need to rise to the responsibility of providing true dividends of democracy across the different sectors. My name is Francis Oyema, and it's been wonderful doing this with you throughout the month of October. Let's do this again tomorrow, being the 1st of November.
Thank you so much for being a part of Rise and Shine. My name is Uyai Aneka. Let's meet again tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of your day.